The city of Bristol has always been, I would say, 10, maybe 15 years behind London. And I don't mean that in a derogatory manner, as in, in terms of infrastructure and fashion or anything like that. I mean, in terms of the changing demographics and the ever going battle against the gentrification and the hipster invasion and so forth. So there's areas of Bristol that have gone the same way as areas of London has. If you look at the original hipsterization, you go to Hoxton and Shoreditch, Brick Lane, Old Street, that kind of area. Now it's changed from being kind of a hipster arty place, and now it's, especially where Hoxton's concerned, it's like it's just full of tech companies and silly restaurants. And then you got areas of Peckham, New Cross. Where else is getting silly? Dalston, extremely silly. So all these areas are changing. And in Bristol, you've got areas that have gone a similar way. Bristol's, I would say, is kind of a cringy city. It's a place I spend a lot of time. In terms of its wokeness, there's a lot of murals to Jeremy Corbyn, a lot of graffiti saying no to austerity. I mean, just this kind of thing. It's very cringe in terms of its wokeness, and it attracts a certain type of people who will go to live in Bristol. In fact, you get a lot of London rejects. You'll find going to Bristol. What's a London reject? Well, that's someone who went to London and worked out that it is just an overpriced shithole, and then decided to go to Bristol, which is a more affordable shithole. I suppose because in general cities are shitholes. We must not forget that if you take away all the excitement and glamorous bits, you're just left with a pile of shit. It's just the way it is. So here you have Portishead, who were pioneers of what you say was the trip hop scene, which was a big part of Bristol's music culture back in the 90s. Bristol was on the map in terms of music back then. Portishead, named after the town of Portishead, just outside of Bristol. Just for those of you who don't know. And they're saying here, 25 years after Dummy, well, doesn't that make you feel old? No, because I feel I'm as young as the woman I feel. She is 22. Band Portishead call Bristol full of posh students in a onesie. Well, it's kind of taken out a little out of context. Not too much, though, I have to say. So what do they have to say? So this is a reflection of the changing landscape of Bristol, I suppose. So areas of Bristol which produce some of the city's greatest music have been taken over by posh students in a onesie. That's just hammering that point home, that there are posh students in onesies. Are people really wearing onesies now? Just saying, I think, the band members of Portishead are probably in their mid to late 40s now, possibly, maybe a bit older. I think they might be a little bit out of touch. I think onesies was like 6 years ago, isn't it now? People are still rocking onesies in a non-ironic way. I don't know about all that. That's the view of the creative forces behind Portishead's debut album Dummy, which was released 25 years ago on Thursday. I don't know if that was last Thursday or this coming Thursday. To mark the anniversary, Jeff Barrow and Adrian Utley did a series of feature interviews with national and international media to reflect on the instant success of the album, which came out after 18 months of hard experimental graft in the Coach House studios that were a hub of the city's musicians at the time. And they pulled no punches in putting the record straight on Dummy, the record it was supposed to be, and how Bristol has changed in those intervening years. Well, we're not really interested in all that. Let's have you cussing people out, please. The band lived in Easton at the time, and Jeff Barrow agreed that what was going on in that part of Bristol helped shape the band's unique sound. But now the city has changed, and not entirely for the better. Now, Easton is somewhere I'm sort of familiar with. Easton was a place where I would go to purchase crack cocaine, to be honest with you. Yeah, so that if you're unfamiliar with the city, as many people outside of other cities are unfamiliar, that sort of paints a picture of what it's like. The only place to eat was Iceland. Well, I mean, I don't think you actually just walk into Iceland and start eating. Maybe it was different back in the 90s, I don't know. I didn't frequent places like that. I like to freeze my own food. At least then I know what I've done to it. Or the horrible pub called Granny's. Imagine a pub called Granny's, where your beans and chips would arrive with Granny's thumb in it. Right, so she'd chop off her thumb every day and put it in there. And then sew it back on and chop it off and put it in the food the next day. Said Jeff Barrow about living and working in Easton. But the process is never romantic, is it? He told The Guardian. See. Well, just glad not to be having to read a Guardian article and have someone just, stealing content from a Guardian article. But the process is never romantic. So listen to how New Order made their first record, or whoever, and it's always going to be the same story. You're in some shithole somewhere that you've made into something okay. Now, those areas of Bristol are changing, however. You go somewhere like St Paul's, which was very much a community of Caribbean people, and there's some posh student in a onesie, they added. Really privileged kids have taken that area over. Okay, see, the problem with this kind of thing is that, I'm someone who shits all over the gentrified types and the hipster takeover of areas. But, to say, when you the sentence, it was very much a community of Caribbean people. Well, it wasn't always a community of Caribbean people, was it? The same as, like, Brick Lane is another great example. Brick Lane is now predominantly Bangladeshi and slowly being taken over by hipster wankers with beards. Well, it's been taken over for a long time. But at one point, Brick Lane was the centre of the Jewish community, for most of the 20th century. And before the Jews, well, there was other people there. I can't remember specifically who they were. I wasn't around at that time, unfortunately. And I don't have a history book to hand. I know I have the internet, but I'm not going to look. So, and Bristol we haven't always had Caribbean communities in the UK. So therefore, before the Caribbean community were there, it would have been, white, scummy Bristolians, I expect. And that's that. So I don't know what your point is. Like, areas change. The demographics consistently change. The Jews moved from Brick Lane out to Golders Green and St John's Wood and so on, right? And one day probably the Bangladeshis will move out and it'll be inhabited by, Canadians or something like that, or just wankers. So it's kind of a weird thing to say, it was this Caribbean area. Yeah, it was for a certain amount of time, but before that it was something else. So kind of saying when you got to look at it like, when you're saying, now there's lots of posh students running around and so forth. Well, yeah, because areas change, especially in big cities. So therefore, there would have been people 50, 60 years ago, or so on, and going, I remember it was just Bristolian whiteys around here, though, it's full of blacks. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's saying, this area was this, and now it's full of these. It's kind of the same. It's just because it's more affluent. And gentrification of certain areas is pretty whack. Make no mistake about it, but a lot of the people who kick up the fuss over gentrification are people who aren't from that area in the first place anyway. If you look at, they had all these marches in Brixton and protests about the gentrification of it. And a lot of them weren't for Brixton, and most of them weren't like Brixton born and bred people. They were people who'd moved there when it was edgy. It's edgy living in Brixton, and then suddenly, and they're the ones who turn it into this place. And then they start whinging that everyone else is doing it. It's like, look, right, you did it. Some people kind of welcome gentrification in a certain way. Like, if you have people bringing money into an area and rejuvenating it, it's good. The problem is when you're booting people out who have been there since day dot, since the bad old days, and don't get to enjoy the rejuvenation of an area. That's another problem. Okay, but also areas change. I know a hell of a lot of people who have left London and gone out to the outskirts, from the home counties, people going to Hertfordshire, a lot of people from the East End going to Essex, people going to Surrey, people going to Kent. It's just what happens. It's just the change in landscape. So, the fact that there's a bunch of privileged kids walking around in onesies, saying, because, in 40 years' time, what is it? There's going to be another group who are going to take over that area, and then all the privileged kids in onesies are going to go, I remember when this was just an area predominantly of privileged kids in onesies. You see what I'm saying? It's just like, what is your point? Do you want somewhere this is the thing, right? We all like areas to be how they are, but do you want them to stay predominantly shit and downtrodden? Having this sort of nostalgic view on when things were shit, it's a bit weird, as far as I'm concerned, You go, I remember when that pub, your feet used to stick to the floor, and if you looked at a man in the wrong way, he'd bottle you, The way they sort of say about, oh, we used to go to this horrible pub where it was disgusting. But you're looking at it with fond memories because you created something great and you had good times. It's like, all right, fair play to you. You get to, you create a good world in bad circumstances. You enjoy your time. But I bet at the time you didn't like it that much. I bet you thought, this is fucking shit. I wish I lived somewhere better. I wish this place was better. I wish I had some better stuff. Because why are you working hard to progress if you don't want better? And what are you doing it for? If you're just doing it for the love, fair enough. But you find that with a lot of people going, oh, I remember this. Like, you have a nostalgic view in an area going, oh, I remember you walked down the street. You wouldn't be able to go to the cash machine without having a knife stuck to your throat. Saying it with some sort of nostalgic tone. It's like, why do you want it to be like that again? I don't understand. Why was it good? Why was that good? Oh, you couldn't. You had to dodge bullets every morning. I was like, well, all right, was that good? Was it? Was it good when you were dodging bullets every morning? Was that how you want it to be? It's like, would you want it to get better? What do you want? You know what I mean? Like, well, isn't it worse when places get shit in a different kind of way? Like if you go to a town that's affected by, I don't know, a recession and all the shops are boarded up. Then you can be nostalgic and go, oh, I remember, there used to be a wonderful shop there, there's a greengrocer's there, oh, that was my barber shop, oh my God, oh, and the furniture store, whatever, like, oh God, it's all gone now it's just full of boarded up crap, then you go, oh, yeah, it was better back then, wasn't it, And instead going, oh, I remember there was pools of blood at every bus stop and a severed hand in every bin. God, I'd miss those days. Now it's just full of good things and there's no rubbish on the streets. I remember the rubbish on the streets. I used to love stepping over rubbish. I used to love getting fucking third world diseases from all the litter and the blood. I used to love finding a dead baby in a bin. That was good times, that was. Oh, bring back those days until they made it good. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, right, just. But on the other hand, I will say, Bristol and cities of the like do get invaded by wankers. They do sort of take over and put their little stamp on it. And say, oh, we're embracing the culture, isn't that quaint? They are wankers. Let's not make any bones about it. You see, there's always been a lot of thing about immigration, about multiculturalism and the taking over of areas. But like, we have our own kind of, national migration shit going on, where wankers will go from their wanky towns, where everyone mocked them, saying, why are you wearing them tight trousers, you stupid prick? And then they move to these areas where everyone's wearing tight trousers and talk shit, and then they just take it over. That's a problem. That's the thing that happens. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? But that is the thing that happens. So I can understand it. We're going, well, now it's just full of wankers in onesies. I mean, I'd be pretty upset if it was full of wankers in onesies. But then wouldn't you prefer wankers in onesies to, just people stabbing each other and just generally getting robbed? What do you want? Like people who move to a real rough area and go, oh, it's good, yeah, it's rough around here. Well, why you moved there? Oh, it's exciting, isn't it? It's like, all right. It's fucking people trying to escape this crap. And you're moving there on purpose? What's the matter with you? Everyone fled the volcano and you fucking went and dived into it because you thought it was exciting. What's wrong with you? And still, lots of Bristol people only give a fuck about themselves. Well, those are called human beings, That's just kind of, people generally, concentrate most of their thoughts and energy on themselves. It's just a thing. But there's been an anti-establishment art scene here too for years, with a massive tongue in its cheek. It was there in the pop group, Smith and Mighty, the Wild Bunch, and Banksy. It's always found itself. That anti-establishment thing is kind of cringe. It's also kind of pro-establishment sometimes. It's a very bizarre thing, but that's for another day. It's not the first time Jeff Barrow, at least, has rallied against the gentrification of parts of Bristol. He famously took Bristol life to task a couple of years ago in a spectacular Twitter rant, which took in everything from Portishead's music being the soundtrack to This Life, to sourdough bread ruining Bristol. I think you're going a bit far when you're saying sourdough's ruining a place, because sourdough's like some of the best bread you get. In terms, bread's pretty, a lot of people are allergic to bread, like, without even knowing it. Bread's not great. You know, it's a staple of our diet that we're in the West that, you know, we should eat less of. But you know, if you don't want to, sourdough is one of the best. So I think sourdough taking over an area. I don't think sourdough ruins anything. I think it sort of I think it enriches things in terms. I think if more people turn to sourdough, it would be better. So I don't see your point. It's like going, oh, all these vitamins are here now. God, vitamins are ruining Bristol. Good health, healthy food is destroying the city I love. People are getting mad healthy now. I remember when I used to shop at Iceland and buy a lasagna for 99p and I'd shit blood. I remember that. That was good, wasn't it? No, not this fucking sourdough shit. That's actually better for your stomach. No. Don't give me that. Please. Can you give me a cancer burger, please? Come on, calm down. One of the things from round of interviews is to mark the silver anniversary of Dummy. So it's going on about that. Yeah, we know about Dummy. Just go listen to it. It's good. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Complex lyrics. Blah, 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 blah. And yet, so it says, and yet the album somehow ended up being the soundtrack to upwardly mobile young people having dinner parties or a sexy chill-out record. Well, yeah, it's not something you bump in your car, is it? Like, it's very dark. And you're not bumping out in your car. You ain't cruising around Southend playing Portishead, are you? You know? You know what I'm saying? It's not your sexy record, is it? It's like, hey, let's get sexy. What are you going to put on? Bit of Jodeci? Jagged Edge? No, I'm going to put on Portishead. Oh, that's very interesting. You can have a cry wank after we fuck. You know? Those people bought the records and made the band big. But it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because at the same time, we absolutely hate it. So you hate your fans. I'm starting to paint a real bad picture of yourself. Like, you hate things getting good, and you hate your fucking fans. So every day, well, you got a nice car, you're driving your nice car, because this record you made was big. You're driving your ass, but you hate the car. We want the car to fucking burn, because the people that paid for it you despise. Like, what do you do at your concerts when all your fans come? You know, after their dinner party, they turn up the Portishead. What do you just fucking say? Fuck all of you! Fuck you, and fuck you for buying a ticket. I hate you. This is all about misery and poverty, you fucking jumped up pricks. I mean, come on, mate. Beth's lyrics are honesty and her feelings. I think that was brilliant about our success because it meant that people would hear some stuff that was coming from a real angle. I think you're missing kind of the point here. I think generally, I mean, things have changed a bit now, but like generally, people from certain backgrounds like to have listened to certain music more. There was this whole thing about, you know, if you're white and middle class, you just really liked miserable fucking music. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just miserable. Just going, oh God, I hate you, mum. Like, it's that kind of thing, you know. And I just think generally when you live in hard times, a lot of people live in hard times, you know. I mean, I remember an interview with Sean Paul, you know, the kind of records Sean Paul makes these, well, most of his life. And he said, you know, he was very depressed when he was younger, went through a lot of shit, but he found that, you know, to deal with his depression, he wouldn't listen to depressing music. He found like going out and listening to uplifting music was what got him through his depression. You see what I'm saying? So certain people live a different kind of way how they interpret music. So if you're making music that kind of appeals to mopey middle-class white people, and you don't like mopey middle-class white people, well, you're making the wrong fucking music, aren't you, really? If you're going to despise the people that like what you do, you know, I can't imagine, you know, a bunch of girls going out on a Friday night or from Knoll West cranking up the Portishead before they head out to hit the tiles. Do you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know, walking into a chicken shop. Yeah, you know, go to the curry goat woman and say, hey, let's get some curry goat. And she's bumping out Portishead, is she? She's not, is she? She's not bumping out a bit of Portishead when you get your brown stew and your can of ting. It's just not happening, is it? They're playing some uplifting music, most likely. It's just, I don't know why you didn't know that. Anyway, we're into people like Nirvana, Polly Harvey. Yes, alright, traditional singer-songwriters that were truthful about themselves. It's nice when people could hear best stories. But in the sense people actually having a dinner party and putting our music on, I would want to go in with a baseball bat and smash the fuck out of the fondue set, right? You need to fucking chill the fuck out. What is wrong with... yeah, you need to chill. Like, what? Like, because someone's... So, I mean, if I went to a dinner party and they're playing... I don't go to dinner parties for starters anyway. It's not really... You won't catch me at dinner parties. I don't know if you've noticed. But I just don't think anyone's... How do you know all this? The people... They're like scouring the internet for dinner party footage. Seeing if they're playing Portishead. It's like, oh, you fucking bastards. Like, come on, bro. I don't know. Is it dinner? I don't think it's dinner party. I think isn't it a social occasion when you're talking? It's essentially what they're saying. You make background music. You know, it's sort of you're making background music, lounge. Because I could imagine Portishead being played in a lounge. Do you know, in a lounge. It is kind of lounge music. It's depressing lounge music, but it's lounge music all the same because it's got that vibe to it. You created it. What did you think? Did you think like loads of Jamaican girls were going to go fucking skank out hard when they heard your tunes when you're on Easton, when you live in Easton? Did you think that's what was going to happen? Do you know what I mean? Did you think you were going to make baby making music? Do you know what I mean? You think you're fucking making Barry White? I just don't understand it. You made it. You must have known. Like, well, who's our demographic for this? I don't know. It's definitely not our neighbours. Like, who? It's so strange. Oh, I hate him. It's like, you know, it was cool when Nirvana, you know, when Kurt Cobain hated his mainstream success. That was kind of cool. That was the 90s. But, you know, I wouldn't ever compare Portishead to Nirvana or the struggles of Kurt Cobain. You know, that was rage. That was rage in music. You know, you wouldn't play Nirvana at a dinner party because it just wouldn't fit, would it? But even Nirvana with all its rage, you know, its rage and misery, you could still put on some Nirvana tunes that get a fucking party going. Do you know what I'm saying? It would. Do you know what I mean? I mean, look at the Breakfast Club. The radio show's been going for years and it's a hip hop station, but they always play like "Smells Like Teen Spirit" as the opening tune. I think Scratch Perverts used to play "Smells Like Teen Spirit" as well. Like, because it's a tune that gets a party going, and yet it's all about fucking angst and, you know, do you see what I'm saying? Like, angsty music about misery and self-torment, but it's appealing to lots of different people. God, this should have been 2 videos. I've gone totally on a completely different trajectory here. It's good, though. Don't really... Who would have thought Bristol Live would have an article that could conjure up so much discussion, isn't it? Isn't that great? Barrow, who now drums in the Bristol band Beak, I don't fucking know, added that he tells people they've got the record wrong if they tell him they loved it as a dinner party record. When has a dinner party record become an actual thing? When did this become a thing? Is there a section now? Is that a section? You know, if HMV hadn't gone tanked up, you know, hadn't tanked, would you be walking along going, there's death metal, clowncore, dinner party music? Good, that's what I was looking for. Do you have what would you recommend for a dinner party? I was like, well, we have Portishead and the Carpenters. All right, good. What? I'd say I'm really glad you did that. I'm really glad you like it. But to me, that's the worst thing you could possibly say to me. Thank you. To me. All right, we're saying, well, I don't really care what you think. It is a good dinner party record. It's... What? I thank them first. Thank you for buying my record then. I think you got the wrong idea of the record. Maybe go home and put it on and turn it up as loud as you can. Okay, maybe. Reflecting on it overnight. I mean, going on and on and on and on. Blah, 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 blah. We've never had a particularly good relationship with the UK music media. That's why we always did more work in gigs abroad. They always wanted to fit in a neat little box and couldn't deal with that. So it's so nice reading things from normal people about dummy. Okay, well, yeah, okay, you know, but you know. Well, so that's an interesting reflection on many different things. But you know, if you are this, if you're a dinner party noob and you've never had one, try putting on Portishead's Dummy, but turn it up really fucking loud, so you can actually understand what it's all about, as recommended by one of its creators. And if you are an idiot considering turning a city into a twatland, you know, why don't you turn your own place into a twatland as well? Okay. and embrace change. I think those are all the lessons we've learned here today.